Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope a Dope Radio Podcast, Rope a Dope Report. It's all the same thing. I'm here live. I'm your host, Chris Carlson, live after the Kovalev Ward HBO pay per view. And what a great fight that we had. I mean, tell me that shit wasn't fun. That was a great fight. I understand that there's going to be a lot of, you know, um, debate, obviously. But I want to start this thing out by just appreciating what we got. So many times in boxing, especially on the main event variety, clearly, let's be honest, we don't really get that many great fights that turn out to be great fights on pay per view. That's just being honest, right? That's just how it goes. It's just not the case a lot of the times. I'm not saying all the time, but really of late, let's add it up. You know, what was the last great fight on pay per view? Would you say Canelo and Cotto was a great fight? And I'm not even calling this fight of the year, but when you go elite versus elite, high level against high level, pound for pound top five against pound for pound top five. First of all, you don't really get those matchups. And when you do, right? When you do, they usually don't turn out all that great, right? They don't. So I just want to give my appreciation to this fight. The undercard wasn't much to speak of. There was a handful of rounds in that first fight. But other than that, it was okay. It wasn't a horrible, undercard. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't. But it wasn't great. It wasn't great. And I just got to do something really quick. I'm sorry, guys. I got to make sure that we're okay here. Let's get in to some of this recap, shall we? I think we shall. I think we shall. Now, this is the fight that a lot of people are going to have a lot to say about. Some people are going to say Kovalev got completely robbed. Some people are going to say I would have been happy with the draw. Of course, that's tough because you have to have a tied round, right? You do have to have a tied round in here, and you have to have Ward winning more rounds. Basically, what would that be? 6-5-1? That's how you get a draw? Anyway, I think so. Now bear with me. I'm having fun, right? I'm got that Stella a la Trois going. I'm just chilling, right? A couple people over, they're gone. They gotta do some stuff in the morning, so I'm just chilling, doing this post fight here, okay? And if you're honest with yourself, there was some swing rounds in this fight. And I'm a longtime boxing fan. I'm not the most hardcore of the most hardcore. However, I do believe that you have to watch a fight like this again. One watch does not tell the whole story, in my humble opinion. Okay? I do know that a lot of people are going to think Kovalev won the fight, and I don't fault them for that. If you look at the first 6 rounds, you could have it 5-1. You could have it 4-2. You could have it 4-1-1, which is what I had for Kovalev. And when I say 4-1-1, that means there's a tied round in there. Or I'm sorry, there's a knockdown in there. Of course, there's a tied round because I said it, but there's a knockdown in there. So this one's tough, man. This one is tough. We can't just sit there and act like this was an easy fight to score. I have seen a couple of people that have said that they had it easy for Kovalev. It was a tight fight. So I'm going to go round by round, just like the title says, round by round. We're going to break this thing down. Now, the punch stats, for how good the fight was and how competitive the fight was, the punch stats really don't do it justice. Kovalev won the punch stat battle, 126 to 116, and he threw 474, and Ward threw 338, which if you look at 474 and 338, that's really not that many punches on both sides for a 12-round fight. I would have thought in the 450 range, 400, 450 range would be Ward, and I would have thought Kovalev would probably be in the 500 something range, right? But he did outland him. And anytime a guy gets knocked down, let's be honest, that stays with you. It's hard not to. First of all, he gets a point off it, right? And it stays with you. It's very easy to stay with you. And when a big shot's landed, it's easy just to say, he won. He won the fight off that. And basically, when I look at this fight the first time around, that's kind of where I'm at. I'll be honest. That maybe, first glance, I feel like a draw here if you have a tied round. However, I think that gun to my head, right? Gun to my head, that I would probably have Kovalev win in the fight. Okay? So let's get into this. Let's get in and talk about some of these freaking rounds because it was a great fight. Very great fight. So the first round, well, I'm sorry. There's just so much going on in my head right now. I thought in the first couple rounds, especially the first two, that Ward was actually trying to prove a point. Not completely how Sugar Ray Leonard was trying to prove a point to Duran. Not that much. But I felt like he was trying to hang around in the pocket way too much. That early. And not even in the pocket, but throwing lead shots without his jab, throwing a wild left hook early. I know a lead right and a left hook is great shots for him. Those are some of his best punches. But when you fight a guy like Sergey, you got to be smarter than that. And you saw him slowly but surely mix in some subtle movement. Now, I'm not saying, I did get into it with a couple of people saying, well, that's his game in the pocket. Well, that is true. But it's not his game to push Kovalev back or even stay right in front of him too long. I just thought he was too stationary. And if you're going to be stationary, you might as well jab a bunch. I mean, he got out jabbed. I don't know what the final, punch stat was for jab. I didn't see it, but I know there was a point where it was like 90-something to 40-something, and Kovalev was the one jabbing. So I thought that Ward came out with a bad game plan early, and on the flip side, Sergey came out perfectly, in my opinion. I thought he was patient but steady working, and he was throwing the jab to set up stuff. He was doing what he does. And then, like I said, I'm not saying Ward doesn't fight on the inside, but there's no point in standing right in front of him off the jump. Now, do you throw lead punches? Yes, of course. That's what Ward does. Do you try to get on the inside or stay on the edge of the pocket or on the outside? Yeah, that's what he does. But with Kovalev, you got to be smart. You got to be smart. When you're going to try to take a step back and counter or throw lead shots, you got to have your timing down. You got to figure out the guy. You don't just do that from the jump. Not against Sergey Kovalev. So the first round, you saw in my opinion, Ward, sure, he landed some jabs and right hands, but to me, he was winging some shots. And the first punch, really, that Kovalev landed with, the first good jab stumbled him. The best two shots of the first round were two jabs, and that was by Kovalev. So he was doing his thing, and he at least stumbled or stunned him. And to me, it kind of looked like he broke his nose for a second. To me, it kind of looked like he messed up his nose. Now, I don't know if that's true. It looked like it was okay after that, but I gave Kovalev the first round clearly. Same with the second round. Like I said, I even have a note here. He's fighting the wrong fight. You can't do this early in the game. First flush right hand. And I'm talking about a clean shot. The first flush right hand that Kovalev landed, bam, caused the knockdown. Clean one, too. And Kovalev flurried after that. That's a 10-8 round. I mean, I don't think he was going just full out for the knockout, but he had him on the ropes, and you could tell that Ward was troubled. No doubt about it. However, the third round, you could actually see, and I wrote this down as a note, Virgil was yelling, don't stand in front of him so much. What do there's no point to do that. See, you do that, like let's use Floyd Mayweather as an example, right? Now, they're not the same fighters, I know. And I'm not talking about Ward had to be on his toes and moving constantly. I'm talking about subtle movement. I'm talking about angles. I'm talking about pivot. I'm talking about landing a jab and getting out of there, landing your little shot and getting out of there. You don't sit there and be so comfortable in the pocket just yet. Not even a guy like Mayweather does that, especially in this type of fight. Look at how he fought Manny Pacquiao. And obviously Kovalev, I believe, cuts the ring off better than Manny Pacquiao. But anyway, you could hear Virgil saying, don't stand in front of him. And it was a close round. I could see how people thought Kovalev still won the round, right? But the jab and some movement, I actually did give Ward the third round. Okay, so now we're sitting here at 2-1, right? And I'm going to actually, where's a pen here? I'm going to actually write this stuff down. And I'll say right off the jump, I got to watch the fight again. Anybody that's been watching, boxing for a while, you can watch a fight and then you watch it again and you end up giving, I think there's I'd say at least 2 swing rounds in this fight. And you watch those again and all of a sudden you have a different view, and I'm just being honest. That happens to me a lot when it comes to this stuff, when it's a tight fight. So right now, it's 2-1, obviously a knockdown, right? So you'd have it 20-17 after 2, right? And then I did give it 10-9 for Ward on the third. So I have a 2-1 Kovalev, but I had obviously the knockdown, which was a great right hand that he landed. So right there, he's got an advantage with the knockdown, and in the end, that may have done the trick for him. That could have done the trick for him. Not totally sure. So it would be 30 or 29-27 at that point, okay, after the third. So the fourth, I had it for Kovalev. Once again, I thought that he was trying to counter and try to throw lead shots, Ward, when you should have been doing what you're doing in the third round. Counter punchers don't, in the first couple rounds, start counter punching out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And I'm not even saying that Ward's this great Marquez Mayweather counter puncher, but he can counter clearly, and he can time people with those lead shots. But he was having problems for a while timing Kovalev, right? So the fourth round, clearly, I thought that was for That was for Kovalev, right? So now we're at 3-1. I thought he landed the best shots of the round. Um, I thought he landed some clean shots late, and I gave him the round. Now the fifth round, that's a swing round for me. Okay, that's a swing round. That could have been a 10-10 round. I thought that it was a competitive round, very close, obviously. But I saw Ward finally like landing shots and using a little bit of movement. Just a little. Mix it up. I'm not saying on his toes, like I said, but you can go forward and close the gap, but you can also just land your jab, move a little bit, land your jab, and then set something up. You know what I mean? I think that was a problem. So to me, that's like a 10-10 round, maybe Ward there. Okay. So I'm gonna go what I did on my scorecard because I haven't seen it again, right? So I'm gonna go after that after 5 rounds, 3-1-1. Okay. So I'm gonna go 10-10 in that one. I think that that's how I see it on that one. So we have 49-46 after the fifth, Kovalev. Then I gave the sixth to Kovalev. I thought he got that round. I'm just making a little note so I'm not screwing myself up. It was a close round. It was a close round. Ward was landing some decent shots. Like I said, he was starting to mix more movement, but the jab and a late left hook and a right hand, for me, that stole the round for Kovalev. So after after 6 rounds, I had it 4-1-1 Kovalev. Okay? On just rounds, right? So what would that be? 59-55? Is that what that is? I think so. 59-55. I think that's right. Anyway, 7th round comes around, and I thought the second half, Ward fought a better fight. And clearly I had him winning a lot more rounds in the second half. And this is part of, I say the swing round is a fifth, right? Is that the round I said? So yeah, swing round's a fifth. Well, I got to go back and see what I did on the back half. And if I didn't start, giving a couple more rounds to Ward off of that. You can do that, just like the early rounds with a knockdown. That knockdown and some of those clean shots, even though even in the first round, those first 2 jabs won the round for him. You mean the biggest things he landed were 2 jabs and Kovalev won the round? Yep, that's exactly what I saw, right? So by that point, it's 4-2-1. I thought that the jabs, the right hand, especially midway through, he was landed well. Now, there was some late stiff jabs by Kovalev, but I thought that Ward got his shots back too in that process. So I did give him the round. So where are we at here? What did I say? 50. Shoot, I scribbled that. So now it's 68-65. Is that right? I'm sorry. I'm kind of distracted right now. I need somebody to leave me alone. All right, sorry about that. So anyway, we're in the 8th round now. I got it 4-2-1. I gave Ward the 8th round. I thought that subtle movement, using his jab first and foremost, right? But the subtle movement just on the edge of the pocket. And then, and this is something he did well for a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of the second half, was the body shots, especially the right hand to the body. I thought the 8th round was his best all-around round at that time. I really did. I think that was his best overall round. So now I have it 4-3-1, right? And so that would be, what would that be, 75? You got to leave me alone. I'm sorry, guys. So 77-75, still Kovalev winning, right? So now we go to the 9th round. Is that where I'm at? Yeah, 9th round. He was mixing up his shots now, I thought, more Ward. I gave it to Ward. He was using angles. You did see on the inside that although I mentioned the body shots, right? I mentioned the body shots, but for Kovalev, I thought he did pretty good there, and he landed an uppercut, a really nice uppercut in that ninth round. But to me, the mix of shots to the body, few right hands, a good right hand late, left hooks. I just thought that Ward beat him in that ninth round. So then that gives us, after 9, I had it 4-4-1, right? So now we're 85. What are we at? 86 to 85. I think I'm doing this. I could be wrong on this because I'm getting distracted. All right, I think I'm out of the distraction mode. Let me take a sip of my beer here. Now we get to the 10th round, guys, and to me, this was a swing round. So you have the 5th and the 10th are swing rounds. It could have went either way. I gave it to Kovalev. I thought Kovalev, in that round, they were trading shots, not exchanges, but it was like a jab, 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 right hand, jab, jab. They were both doing similar things, but you couldn't tell for a while who was getting the better shots there. So they were trading one at a time. Ward had the lead left hooks. He actually had another left hook later, but the jab right hands, and I think late there was a time, and I thought Ward made a mistake here, and this is very unlike Ward. Just because he won a couple of rounds in a row, what would that be? 3 rounds in a row? He started doing the bolo punch, right? He started hot dogging, and he got caught with a decent shot there. And when you're in a tight round, I'm sorry, but he did the bolo and got hit in the face. Now, I think he returned a shot, but to me, a couple of stiff jabs near the end. By the way, Kovalev's nose was starting to bleed in that one. That's another one I'm going to have to check out, that 10th round. So I got it, after 10, I got it 5-4-1, Kovalev. So now we're looking at, I don't know if I got this right, guys, 96 to, what would that be, 94? I don't know. Anyway, I could have messed up my math early in this. So the 11th round I got for Ward. Both were landing good shots, kind of early to mid, but I thought later, I even marked it down at the 72nd mark. There was a great left hook, and then later, another just flush left hook. And so the bigger shots, although, like I mentioned, both of them were landing mid to or early to mid, and a jab right hand, obviously, still getting through for Cove. But I thought Ward in the last 70 seconds, with a couple of left hands, especially like later in that round, a flush left hook, that made it 5-5-1 round wise. And so we're looking at, what are we looking at? 105 to 104, right? So the 12th round, this was a good round too. I thought early on a right hand and some left hooks were landed for Ward. Kovalev landed his left hook, a really nice one. Good body shots by Ward, and then some short body shots by Kovalev. This was this type of fight, especially after like the first 4 to 5 rounds. Definitely the second half. Ward won more rounds, of course, but it was back and forth, ebb and flow, tit for tat. And that's what made it a great fight. Especially, when I call this a super fight, I'm not saying either of these guys were stars, right? Although the next pay-per-view will definitely do better, right? Obviously. The next pay-per-view is doing better, guys. I think these guys, no matter what you thought about the fight, I think they went up a notch. They went up a notch. I think that's, you know what I mean? I think that's fair. That's fair to me. I really think so, and I do think that you're talking about a really good, potentially, pay-per-view. Because neither of these guys are going to get guaranteed 10 and 20 and 32 million and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Some short right hands a left hook late by Ward. It was tick for tack. I did give Ward that round, though. So overall, this is how I scored it. I'm saying right off the bat 6-5-1 for Ward, just rounds wise. And obviously, that would put me at 114. So I put it as a draw right away. That's my first scorecard. Now I'm going to watch this puppy. I mean, at least twice before the show on Wednesday, right? But I'm telling you, we don't get this kind of fight on pay-per-view main events a lot of the time, man. This was oh man, and this is why when we said puncher versus boxer, right? It was way more than that. These guys, both technicians, both respected, and so I had it 114 a draw. Now, if you told me, well, who do you think won? Well, in a tight fight, right? Does a knockdown count for more? Yeah, I would say so. And that's what I've been tweeting. That's kind of my opinion. I had it a draw, but if you said, but who do you think won? I would think Sergey Kovalev won by a round or by a point. 114. I had 2 swing rounds, and that's just right off the bat. You hear me saying it was a competitive round and this, that, the other to other rounds. You know what I mean? So I'm just being honest. A lot of people, whoever they picked, they're going to skew to that side and just skew no matter what. If you want to call this a robbery, go ahead. You probably pick Kovalev or put money on him if you call it a straight up robbery. Because for me, it's a 6-6 fight. You take away the, take away the tied round, because a lot of people are afraid for tie rounds. And I know for quite some time, the 10-point must system, right? You got to score 10 points in a round. I know that changed a couple of decades ago, right? And people are afraid, they don't like tied rounds. Well, I'm not that type. In fact, if you go back to some of the times, I know the 80s was a huge heyday, obviously, and tie rounds weren't. The broadcasters would still kind of say it, but people weren't necessarily, you wouldn't see scorecards like that, I guess. I don't really know when the tide turned on that. Obviously, the 10-point must system had a lot to do with it, but if you go back, go way back to everybody's, when they say, oh, boxing way back in the day, dude. Well, first of all, it'd be like 15 rounds, and you'd see like 2-3 tied rounds on scorecards. And I'm not saying you got to pick rounds, but there's some rounds in there that I think one of them's a tie round, to be honest with you. That's just off the first glance. So, like I said, some people are afraid to do tight rounds. I, for one, I'm not. So, just first glance, first time watching it, I think Kovalev won by a point. That's what I think. Now, Kovalev does have a rematch clause. I remember Kathy Duba specifically saying, well, there's a rematch clause for both, but Andre Ward, like if they lose, if Kovalev loses, they're going to go right to their rematch clause. That's the way Duva, and I'm sure we're going to hear it in the press conference, which is going to be very interesting. I'm going to check that out right now or soon after this video. But I'm sure they're going to go right to it. He already said it, and Ward already said, yeah, I'll do it. Now, he's not going to negotiate a fight, of course, like he said too. That's fair. But I obviously, this fight mandates a rematch. So I'm just being honest with you guys. I went through it. Like I said, I could have got my math wrong because a certain girlfriend messed me up early. So I could have got the math wrong, but I believe I had it 114. But that's what the tied round, 6-5-1. So if it's 6-6, which if you said 6-6, that's a Kovalev win. So on the 10-point must system, well, see, the 10-point must system, you can go 10-10, right? So, I don't know. I think it was a very competitive fight. I can see after the first like 6 rounds, it could have been 5-1 with an extra point. It could have been 4-2 with an extra point. That's still a big lead. But then on the flip side, how many rounds could you have given from round 7 to 12? Could you give Cove 2 or 3? I mean, obviously you only need to give him one more, right? So this was a great fight. It's very arguable and debatable, but just watching it live, I have to admit, if I had to pick a winner, and I said gun to my head, but it's not even like that. In a tight fight, the rule of thumb, see, I don't necessarily go, you got to beat the champ, because Andre Ward's a freaking champ. Andre Ward's already proven to be a champ. So, yeah, technically at light heavyweight, Sergey, he was the champ. But in my opinion, I go off of, well, if it's a tight fight, what was the difference in the fight? Well, a knockdown. And even the first round was very telling. Ward probably outlanded him, but 2 jabs, one of them really hurt him. Or I don't know how hurt he was, but he was freaking bothered at least buzzed. At least buzzed. The first couple, you know what I mean? So this was fun. And like I said, the fact that this happened on pay-per-view originally, yeah, it wasn't crazy that it was on pay-per-view, just like I wasn't crazy about Crawford and Postol. But at least it was a worthy fight. Both of those were worthy fights, but especially this one, because Ward and Kovalev had proven themselves. Where Postol had proven himself against Matisse, and he had proven himself, but not to the extent of both these guys in my mind. And just the eye test too. You know what I mean? So right off the bat, like I mentioned, I either have it a draw or I favor Sergey Kovalev. Let me know what you guys think. This was a tight fight. This was not an easy fight. I think I'm going to call into whoever's doing a show. I'm assuming theboxingvoice.com's doing one. I'm about to go to YouTube and see if other ones are popping off too. Make sure you check out the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast. You can check it out anytime on iTunes. Subscribe there. You can listen to it every Wednesday or anytime on Rope-A-Dope Radio or blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Or if you like it in TuneIn or SoundCloud, it's all over the place. You can check it out there. And if you're into college sports, college football and college basketball, obviously college football is the one popping right now. I do a weekly The College Ball Show podcast as well, just for the people out there. We do college football, then we go to college basketball, then we go to the NBA playoffs. But anyway, this is the Rope-A-Dope Radio, Rope-A-Dope Report, whatever you want to call it, because it's on YouTube. I'm your host, Chris Carlson. I'm signing off. What a great fight. I'm just happy we got a great fight. I'm really happy that they both had. When do you see both having rematch clauses? The way Duva explained it, though, is that Ward did have a different rematch clause, meaning if he felt like he got robbed, I don't know if he thought he could, if maybe it'd be another fight and then the rematch. I have no clue. Just the way she explained it, they said there was a couple of different stipulations, or a stipulation that was a little different, but the way like I said, I'm sure they're already talking about it on Twitter and at the press conference. Duva said, if Sergey loses, we have a rematch clause. So clearly he's going to exercise that rematch clause. And what are we sitting at, November? Next May, next June, next April, whatever. I guarantee you, though, I shouldn't guarantee anything, but I wouldn't doubt if this thing's going to be in Staples Center or if it's going to be at the Oracle. I think that'll be the sticking point. That Ward will say, all right, cool, but I won, so I get it at the Oracle or Staples Center. Pretty sure Staples Center Pretty sure Richard Schaefer said the Staples Center is not available until June. Busy, pretty damn busy event. But you never know, or arena, I should say. But you never know. It's not like the Lakers are going to go deep in the playoffs. That's a shot as a Timberwolves fan. Sorry, I've been there in Vegas in the sports book. I guess in LA too, but in the sports book during prime Kobe and Shaq and Kobe and the second wave, Artest and Gasol and all those guys. I've been there during that time, and God bless you, California Bocking fans and Laker fans, but that shit is a pain in the ass in the sports book. I remember, I think it was against Utah when Artest got that cleanup layup to win the game, and it looked like they were going to lose that game. Those damn Laker fans. No, I'm just playing. Anyway, I'm signing off, guys. I hope you enjoyed the fight. Comment, man. Send me a message, tweet at me, direct message, text me for the people that know me like that. We got a damn good fight on pay-per-view in a main event, and we can't always say that. These guys fought their heart out, considering even if you think Kovalev won, clearly, you got to give credit to Ward because he looked like it was going to be it looked like he was going to get knocked the fuck out. I'll be honest with you. It really did. And I thought the rematch is going to be interesting though, because in the second half of the fight, well, we'll get to that. I'm not going to get there. Anyway, you guys give me a follow if you want to keep this going on Rope-A-Dope Radio on Twitter. Or at Rope-A-Dope Radio. Peace.